Welcome to the Noir Poise podcast, where wisdom is power is more than just a motto.
It's our way of life. While we don't claim to have all the answers, we're dedicated to delving deeper into different topics through meaningful conversations. As a duo, we bring different viewpoints to the table, enriching our joint journey towards growth and poise.
Join us as we explore and unlearn to relearn while striving to navigate life with poise. I don't know about you, but I've been in situations continuously where for a long time I didn't recognize that part of the pattern was me. Because it's easy to point fingers at other people, right? And say like, oh, people treat me this way, or people do this, or people this, that, and the third. But I've come to a place in my life where I try to take a lot of accountability for myself. And we still trying, okay? Just we're not perfect at it at all. But I try to take accountability in regards to how people may treat me, how people may see me, how people may respond to me or act towards me, rather than taking things so personal all the time. I try to sit back and ask myself, okay, how did I trigger that person to respond that way? Or how did I allow that to happen, in a sense? So now I move in a way where I try not to put myself in certain positions that will allow those same situations to occur again.
I have a question for you, though. Do you feel that's in your control, though? For example, let's say you're a caring person. You're always reaching out to help people, but it's gotten to the point where some people just naturally just start taking advantage of you. Is that your fault that someone is taking something good and turning into bad?
Glad you asked that, because for a long time, I thought it was everyone else's fault. You remember conversations like I literally thought, whatever the case may be, I blamed everyone else. I do think to some extent I do have control. I can't control how people act. I can't control control anything in the situation except for myself.
Yeah.
So at least now for me, I think of it as, okay, I've noticed that this is what occurs when I do this or when I say or act this way. So what's going to happen is I'm going to now change my approach in the future rather than doing the same exact thing. And if it happens again, that tells me I need to tweak my approach again. So that's what I've been applying, like just in a general aspect, not even just like with people, but just in life. Like if I notice, at least I'm trying, if I notice that something occurs and I don't like it, I try to think about it and find ways where I can improve myself or change myself in order for that situation to not occur again. So to answer your question, yes, I definitely think there is an aspect of it that is in our control, because people treat you how you allow them to treat you. And pertaining to life in general, not even in a people's aspect, I've been saying this pretty often now, but I truly believe that taking accountability for where we are, how things are, where we're not, and how things aren't, allows you to change the way you move, whether that's how you act, how you think, your perspective. But ultimately, those things are in your control. So you shift where you can control. And I think when we shift what we can control, everything else doesn't occur the same type of way anymore. And even if it seems like it does, if your perspective is different, it's not going to have the same effect. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but I'm starting to wonder if that's even fair.
Explain.
I think I've shared this with you before, where I think you start to lose the moment you start changing who you are for other people. So if you're naturally a caring person and people start to take advantage of that and you start to change that, then I think that's a bit unfair on you.
Well, it's not that you're changing that you're a caring person. you're changing who gets to see that side of you. And there's different ways to be caring. So in a situation where that's the example, if I'm constantly being caring towards a certain person and I realize that the response is not appropriate, or I notice the person is using or abusing, that doesn't mean I'm not going to be caring going forward. I'm not changing who I am. I'm changing what part of me you get to experience. That's how I see it.
Right. Okay. I get that. I've had several instances actually where I had to, humbly accept that there is a cycle and it's probably me. Where you said this to me multiple times about paying attention to details. So within our relationship, I always thought that you just saw more than I did. So when you told me to pay attention to details, I did take it, but I always took it with a grain of salt because I'm like, I call you a computer for a reason.
I'm
You
done.
analyze things, you see things. I'm like, yeah, I didn't really see that before. But then when I started getting into my career, I've had managers tell me the same thing. And even then, I kind of dismissed it like I do 99% of the things right. Maybe one thing I did wrong because I oversaw it. I'm human. I kind of dismissed it. But it wasn't until I went to another job and I had my managers tell me the same thing that I had to say, okay, clearly there's a cycle. Is it me? Kind of thing.
No, that's real. Sometimes you have to look at situations and be like, am I the common denominator?
Yeah, I think the reason why I was able to call that out, because to be completely honest, if you said that to me and then maybe your sister said that to me or your mom said that to me, I would have been like, it's all the same person.
I'm done.
It's all the same person. I would have,
Not the same
same
person.
family, they all
Okay,
see the
I see
same
what you're trying to
thing.
say. When you say the same
Yeah.
person, bro, I'm like, come on.
If I had
Because
it
we see a certain side of you. So
right,
yeah, I get
if
you.
if I had that done in one particular job, then I would have been, said the same thing. It's the company perspective, whatever the case is. But the fact that I've had that happen in my personal life and in more than one area in my career, that told me, okay, clearly there's something that I'm either doing wrong or not doing at all.
That's big of you. I think that's good that you noticed that, because believe it or not, a lot of us don't. I think for years I did not notice I was setting up the trend line. And I think that's a lot of people out there where it's easy to blame situations, it's easy to blame life, it's easy to blame other people, but it's, at least now for me, if I notice something happened 2 times or more, I'm like, I gotta look at this. It's one thing if it happens one time, cool. It could have just happened. Although there's always a potential to learn, right? But if it happens 2 times, I start to look at the situation like, what are the odds that twice this kind of situation happened to me, or twice I've been told this comment? So that's when I start to look at it and I'm like, okay, even if it could just be the person's perspective, at the end of the day, the way I look at it now is there's somewhere that I can improve.
Yeah.
If 2 people are saying it, or if I'm in 2 similar situations, then there's somewhere that I can improve. And that improvement doesn't always mean that that person is right. It could just mean that maybe I'm giving the wrong perception. Maybe I'm not, because at least for me, that's what I started noticing in some situations. I was like, maybe I'm not illustrating myself properly, and people are only seeing a certain side of me. Like, one of the things, to be honest with you, is, I don't know if you've ever heard the term rest in B face, but people tell me like I have an appearance that's not approachable.
Really?
That's my thinking. Every time people say, I'm like, really? Because I feel like I'm always smiling outside of my home. I'm always like giggly and friendly, and at least I think I am.
I'm about to start looking at you now.
At least I think. But that's the thing, though. Depending on who you are in my life, you see a different side of me. I'm not going to show all of me to everyone. That's never going to happen. So, like, the version of me that you get here at home, no one out there is getting. That's the version you get, and only you. But in general, like, I thought I was like a very friendly, approachable person. and it's not even the friendly aspect. I've just been told that like my face can sometimes come off. You actually said this to me
What?
not too long ago. Intimidating.
I don't think I said your face is intimidating.
Because I feel like I'm
But
always smiling, but I guess my demeanor, maybe not my face, maybe
yeah,
my
there's
demeanor.
a way that you ask questions that I think I said you could be very hawkish.
Mm. No, it wasn't that though. And that's something I'm working on too. But but it wasn't that though. It was another situation where I was questioning why someone wasn't being themselves around me and I was annoyed by it. I was just like, I don't even like the fact that the person was putting up a front and it was obvious the person was putting up a front, like just being overly positive, overly extra. And I'm just like, can we just chill and be normal? Like without the extraness. And you had mentioned to me that I can come off as intimidating. So maybe that's why. But when you said that, because if you had said that alone, I probably wouldn't think that, to be honest with you. I don't think I'm an intimidating person personally. But why are you laughing?
No, I was gonna say
Disrespect. I'm from New York. Don't play with me. I don't think I'm an intimidating person. And because I've always been bigger than everyone else, if people don't know how I look, I'm 5'11". Like I'm tall. So, and I've always been tall my whole life. So because I've always been bigger than the average person my age growing up, I trained myself to be very smiley, and I smile at strangers or like, say hello because I don't want people to get the wrong perception of me. But I also know that I come from a Haitian family where, we sometimes wear our emotion on our face. So sometimes like you see something funny, it's just like, huh? Like that happens. I know that I can be that way. But you weren't the first person that said something like that to me in that instance. So that's when I took it. I was like, okay, someone recently said that to me. That person wasn't the first person either. So that told me, okay, although some people may see like the chipper side of me, there are people maybe when I don't have like that type of relationship with them, they may see me in that way that may be a little bit more negative. But that's just a simple example. But that allowed me, because it was said to me more than twice, I was like, okay, maybe there's some truth to it. Even though I'm not like that with everyone, like the people who are closest to me will know, like, for the most part, I'm chipper. Like, yeah, if I get mad, that's a whole different story. But for the most part, I try to be happy. At least I think. After family and friends listen to this episode, maybe you guys can let me know. But point is, after something is said or something occurs more than twice, I think it's important to look at it. Yeah, and see, maybe I'm giving a certain type of perception in certain atmospheres. We don't know, but I do think at some point, regardless of if the person is right or wrong, whether the person knows you or not, I think it's good to take it into consideration. Not saying you're going to change the way you operate because of that statement, but I think it's good to just analyze it and see if there is any truth to it.
Yeah. I hear a lot of that. Well, the opposite of that, I should say, in the dating world, where people are always saying this, whether men or women, that the opposite gender is, there's no good men out there, or there's no good women out there.
That's so funny. I just posted something like that online.
I'm always wondering to myself, like, people who say that, do you think you're a good man? Or do you think you're a good woman? Are you the only exception? If you're having these experiences, then maybe, and again, this is what I would do for myself. This is what I do for myself, I should say. If you're having these experiences, you have to stop and wonder, like, maybe
why
it's
am I
me
attracting?
Like I used to, there was one time, I was really young, but it left an impression on me where I had a cousin of mine who, I said something and she looked at me and she said, "You always have to make a comment, don't you?" I kid you not, I was probably like less than 10 years old when she said that to me.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I never forgot it because it hurt my feelings, because I never wanted to be that type of person where you always got something smart to say, kind of thing. And I'm not saying never done that since then, obviously,
Yeah.
but when she made that comment, it made me take a deeper look at myself. Like, am I one of these people who think
Dang,
who?
at 10? Look at you. Okay. Oh,
But I had
wow.
to literally think to myself, am I one of these people who always have a smart comment to say or think I know everything? Like I had to
Yeah.
analyze myself and
That's funny because you say that as an adult now. I actually can remember several situations where, like, I'm like, why didn't you just say something? And you're like, yeah, I don't want to come off as like a know it all.
yeah,
Like, even with like close people to you, I'm just like, you can say it in a way where you don't come off that way, though.
yeah, and I'm like,
So
I would
clearly
rather
it's stuck.
be, yeah, I
Yeah.
would rather be safe than sorry with that
Mm-hmm.
aspect. But I hear this so much within the dating world where people are always
Men are trash.
yeah, men are
Women are
trash.
trash.
And I'm not gonna lie,
That's so sad.
I think we've said this ourselves too, where we've had conversations and you're like, God forbid I go, or will you remarry? I'm like, absolutely not, because there's
I mean,
no
you got
woman out there, or whatever the case is. Like, so even I have certain views, where I think everyone else is the problem. It's every other woman besides you. I think a lot of people do have a reason for thinking that way, but at the end of the day, you're only responsible for yourself. So I think if you're encountering everyone you're dating
Yeah, no, it's
is a
you, boo.
problem, like you
It's
have
you.
to at least start looking at yourself like maybe I'm doing something or I'm at least attracting these type of people.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that because I don't agree with you. I mean, yeah, there are people out there who are not of great quality, and then there are people out there who are amazing. But I do feel like we tend to like to point the finger. We notice that this person's not enough, this person doesn't have this. We're always constantly looking at the issues of everyone else, and we don't stop to take accountability and realize where we have flaws. But yes, what you said, I really believe that you attract what you are. So if you're attracting a type of person more than once, there's something you're doing. You're the one attracting them. Why do they feel comfortable approaching you? And why do you keep falling into it? You
But
know?
like we were kind of talking about earlier, it's one thing to recognize that okay, I have multiple people saying something about me. But like in the case where I said both personally and professionally, I've been told that I need to pay better attention to detail. I really thought to myself like, I feel like I am. Like, what else could I do? Like
That's a good point.
even the other day, well, you asked me to get something in
Out the
another
freezer,
room,
yeah.
and I promise you, I stood there and I put on my Terminator scanner on,
Oh,
and
man.
I did not see the frozen string beans.
I commend you for trying.
I came upstairs and I literally said to myself, if she goes down there and she finds frozen string beans, then this is clearly a problem with you because you looked through it. And you went downstairs, and by the smile on your face, I'm like, she found frozen string beans. How did this happen? But actually, earlier today when I went back in the freezer, I dug deeper because I was about to say the same thing. There is no frozen string beans in here, but I dug deeper and I
So
realized that's what I
you were
didn't
looking
do.
at the surface.
Yes.
I'm glad you noticed that because that's basically what it is. You're not looking at the details. You're
Yeah.
looking at the what's at eye level,
Yeah.
and paying attention to detail requires you to look at more.
But back to the dating example, how would someone recognize that they may be the problem?
Honestly, I think it's basically what we've been saying. If you realize something has happened more than twice, in my opinion, I feel like that should be enough. Like if I was in a dating world and I dated two similar guys, I'd stop and question myself, what about me is attracting this type of person if that's not what I want? Because I strongly believe in that statement. You are what you attract. The way you carry yourself, the way that you speak, the way that you look, the way that you dress, the way that you operate will attract a specific type of person. And if you notice that, at least for me, if I was in that position, if I noticed that I was attracting people that I am not fond of, then there's some areas in my life that I need to correct. And I don't even think it's just a dating thing. I think in general, like for me, I am very specific about who I allow in my circle, who I allow in my community. There are different type of relationships, of course. So for me, if I notice that there's a specific type of person that's being drawn to me and I don't want to be around that person for whatever reason that is, if it's negative, then I start to ask myself, like, what about me is making that person want to be around me? And to be honest with you, that has helped me in my life, where the people who I started to feel something negative about, I'd find that they slowly drift away on their own. Or, I mean, there's people that I slowly drifted away from too, if I'm completely honest. But there are people that, like, all of a sudden you notice, like, oh, I don't talk to that person that often. And life kind of handles itself, because I strongly believe that if you're not feeding certain attributes of a person, they're not going to want to be in your
circle.
Yeah. And I think it's the same way across the board. I don't think it's just a dating thing. I think it's generally, you are what you attract. And I personally do it with, like, where I am in life right now, where I'm like, okay, I'm not where I want to be. And I ask myself regularly, okay, Ruth, be honest with yourself. What are you doing every single day that's getting you on a path towards where you do want to be? And if I have a goal and I don't make that goal, I'm trying not to beat myself up about it so much anymore, but more so looking at it like, okay, what can we change? What has not been working? And, why haven't I been able to get to that goal? And that's really how I think it should be looked at across the board, especially with dating. If you're attracting a specific type of person, it happens more than twice. You should be questioning, like, what about me is giving off the vibe that allows that person to feel comfortable enough to approach me, let alone for me to entertain it long enough where we're an actual thing, you know?
I think, when you get into a certain routine, you don't realize when you're in a cycle.
Yeah, that's really what it is.
And
a lot of times we're not aware.
And it goes back to what we've always been discussing: accountability, looking at yourself, just trying to discern or see what your patterns are.
Right.
Like you said, if you're dating the same person, like I hear this all the time, where people will say men are trash, but when you look at the men they've dated, yes, the men you've dated are trash. Or
but there's a lot of great
people
men
may
out
say
there.
things about women, and it's like, have you seen you've basically dated the same women with different names.
That's really a thing.
And so it's easy to see that your experience is what the world has to offer versus you're introducing yourself, or you're attracting, I should say, the same type of person.
Yeah, and that's the beauty about accountability, because I think without it, we often, in a sense, live like crazy people. You know what they say about the term crazy? It's kind of like insanity.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. You know what they say about insanity, as far as like, it's kind of like repeating the same thing but expecting a different result. And I think we do that more commonly than we notice. Just our day to day, we get into like a routine and we don't stop to actually reflect on the routine. And I think that's why accountability is so necessary in everything. Like, on a regular basis, I'm learning that more and more, is because it could be something real simple that you may not notice that you're doing, and that small shift makes a difference. What I've told myself is, like, even in situations where I'm not doing anything wrong, like, I'm trying to be more aware and take accountability even with small things, like how I make people feel. Like, sometimes in expressing yourself, you don't notice how it may affect someone else or a loved one, depending on what situation they may be going through or what it is that's happening in their life currently, that while it's not my fault that something I say while expressing myself triggers that person, but as a loved one, if I notice it, I think it's only right to take accountability and bring awareness to that. While that person learns how to heal or deal with it on their own, but take responsibility even in the small phrases and actions that we do on a regular basis. Like, operating in routine and expecting something different is really dangerous. The example I just gave, that person may end up acting a little different towards you and you're not aware of it. You have no idea why they're acting that way, although it is their responsibility to deal with their own emotions and deal with their internal situations. But being aware and taking accountability will allow you to kind of like avoid certain things like that and avoid that cycle of whatever that cycle may be for you.
As frustrating as it might be to not just admit that it could be you, but try to go through your own habits to see what you're allowing, causing, or repeating, I would say I do get a good feeling when I realize that I am repeating a cycle, because I kind of see it as, okay, here's my opportunity to change something. Like I have some kind of power within it. So
It's good. I
when
wish I was like that.
I think you are like that,
Yeah,
because
I
even if
mean,
you're analyzing and you're trying to say, okay, two people said this to me, maybe there's something I could do.
yeah, but it doesn't feel good.
It doesn't feel good.
It feels good that I grow from it.
Yeah, that's what I meant by
Oh,
feel good.
okay,
Like
yeah.
you see an opportunity to benefit yourself,
Mhm.
because you'll be surprised how there could be a married couple who's always arguing about the same thing, but that one little tweak in the maybe it's me, maybe
Right.
I'm doing something could change things so drastically. Like I've seen that
Yeah.
happen with us, where I could make a minor tweak in something in the way I say things or a way I do things, and
Ditto.
it completely eliminates something that would have been a conversation or discussion or
Yeah.
argument before. So I see it as overall a positive thing where, okay, I have an opportunity to improve my life.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's really the goal. It's about the growth that comes with it, not necessarily because with change comes growth. Like when you're uncomfortable, these situations obviously they're probably not going to feel comfortable, but what comes from it is the growth and then seeing someone else's perspective. Because sometimes you don't even recognize when you're harming others, let alone harming yourself. Because that's the reality of it is we often ask ourselves, why does this keep happening to me, or why do I keep getting in certain type of situations, or why do I keep dating the same person, not realizing that we're actually the one causing the harm to ourselves. And until we recognize that, we have to make the change ourselves and take responsibility for the parts that we can control, that cycle will probably keep happening.
Yeah.
And this quote that I saw that I love, because it's really what we've been applying like regularly in every aspect, well, at least most aspects, and we're trying to apply it in every way possible. But it said, life doesn't begin until you take complete responsibility for everything that has, will, and is happening in your life. And I think that's really the beauty of accountability again, is it's almost like an awakening. And in the awakening, you start to step out of that cycle. Thank you for spending your time with us. We hope you gained some knowledge today that'll promote poise in your life. We have new episodes uploaded every Thursday right here, same place, same time. Until next time, you can follow us on Instagram at Noirpoise Podcast to stay connected. That's NOIRPOISED Podcast. We'd love to hear your feedback.
And remember, your wisdom is power.